Ethan Morgan had the worst day of his life. Not every day does your young and attractive wife, only 28 years old, announce that from this evening she will start dating other men. Ethan sat silently behind the kitchen counter, clutching a glass of Japanese whiskey. For 10 minutes, he didn't touch the amber liquid. He just sat there staring straight ahead, not seeing, not hearing, but feeling immense pain inside. Ethan knew that not even prescription painkillers could relieve him of this agony. He had heard stories of other men's wives confessing they were dating other men, but he always considered it nothing more than urban legend. How could a woman assume her loving husband would agree to such a thing? Ethan simply couldn't believe that a woman could be so indifferent to her husband, so blatantly selfish in her desires. Of course, this happened on a Monday, but it had been a good day at his tech startup. He even left the office a few minutes after 5, whistling a cheerful tune. Returning home to their downtown Seattle apartment, he still felt quite upbeat, until he discovered his wife sitting at the kitchen island, pouring herself a glass of red wine with a glass and bottle of his favorite whiskey in front of her. He dropped his laptop bag, poured himself a glass, and sat down on a stool. "What is the secret, Sophia?" Ethan asked, noticing the sly smile on his wife's face. His wife looked him straight in the eyes and smirked. What he saw in her eyes made him feel uneasy. He nervously grimaced. "Do you think I've been a good wife all these years?" she asked calmly. Ethan furrowed his brow. He knew his wife understood that he was a thoughtful person, and she could practically see the wheels turning in his head before he answered. "Yes, I think so." "And what are you trying to say with that?" he asked, maintaining his composure. Several seconds passed as Ethan carefully considered his response. "Do you think I should be rewarded for fulfilling my duties as a good husband?" he asked. "What kind of question is that, Ethan?" Sophia snapped irritably. "Today I want to go on a date with another man," she said, calm as a lake on a beautiful morning. Ethan was glad he was sitting down. He felt bile rising in his stomach. His thoughts were akin to a wiped clean slate, utterly empty. A date with another man, he managed to say, struggling. Sophia looked at her husband as if he were a stupid child and nodded slowly. "Yes, with another man. I haven't been on a date with another man since you and I became exclusive 6 years ago. I have been a good wife to you, and I deserve a night with another man, a chance to try someone new. Not someone to love, just pleasure. I am 28, and I can't stay beautiful forever. I want to try more men while I am still a desirable woman and can have them with a snap of my fingers." Ethan's lower jaw slowly dropped. He knew that he had understood his wife correctly. But of course, she couldn't be serious, could she? He didn't even have to ask the question. Sophia nodded at him as if reading his thoughts. "Damn," he muttered as she stood up from the island and headed up the stairs to the bedroom to change clothes. Walking downstairs, Sophia looked stunning in a little black dress that practically clung to her gorgeous body. In front, it had a cutout to the middle of her chest, and in length it barely reached the middle of her thigh. The makeup was light. A beautiful woman doesn't need much, and her long blonde hair was pulled back into a high ponytail. The spectacle was amazing. Sophia saw that at this moment her husband was completely stunned. "I won't let this happen, Sophia," Ethan said, standing up from the counter. "I don't know what you are thinking and what you are doing, but you won't do this while remaining my wife." Sophia's bright smile turned into an ugly grin. "You won't ruin this evening for me, Eth. You can speak harshly, but you know that you will not divorce me because of this. Where will you find a woman like me if you let me leave? Nowhere. And you know it. Suck it up, Ethan. Let me have fun for a few years, and then it will be just you and me again, and we will grow old together. You know you love me. You don't want to be left alone for the rest of your life while I have men to choose from." The sound of a car horn sounded. Sophia grabbed a small clutch and walked over to Ethan, trying to kiss him goodbye. Her husband shuddered, as if from a slight shock, and pulled away to the side. Sophia looked surprised and hurt for a moment, then her expression turned to anger. "I'll be back home. I don't know when," she said, leaving. He watched in horror as she walked out the door. Could his 6-year marriage be over? It looks like it, he thought. Sophia didn't even look back at him as she walked out the door. Scientists have established a sad but true fact. People with good looks have an advantage in life over their more ordinary peers. They make friends more easily, receive more attention, and teachers are more inclined to give them better grades. In Sophia's case, It worked that way, and only got worse when she turned 13 and her chest fully developed. She quickly learned that if she batted her eyes and smiled, she could get almost any boy she wanted. And for those boys who were playing hard to get, she simply puffed out her chest a little. The deal was sealed. Like virtually every man she came into contact with, Ethan fell under Sophia's spell almost from the first time he met her. He met her at a friend's tech conference after party and was quickly captivated. Ethan was a talented developer and popular with other entrepreneurs. Eventually, he plucked up the courage to ask Sophia out on a date, and she accepted. They became a couple, and lasted until the first months of Sophia's new modeling career, when she dumped him in favor of Ryan Jacobs, who was a rising photographer in the fashion industry. At that moment, Ethan was still building his startup with modest success, while Jacobs was established with high-profile clients. Although his feelings were hurt, Ethan accepted his fate. He knew Sophia was out of his league in terms of looks. Heck, most of the men in Seattle weren't in Sophia's league when it came to looks. Because she was dating a photographer, she hung out with a creative crowd. Ethan was just another tech guy roaming the startup scene. He dated and became friends with fellow entrepreneurs, but did not communicate with Sophia. Sometimes during his business events, he noted that the few times she came face to face with him, she acted as if he were a complete stranger. The first time it happened, he was angry, but then he learned to accept it. By the time his startup secured its first major funding round, Ethan had developed more confidence. He was a handsome and driven young man, but he was far from Sophia's orbit. Of course, few were like that. He went to industry galas with his attractive but not spectacular girlfriend. Sophia was often the face of these events, and her date was usually someone from the creative world. They also had their social circles after tech events, but before this, she was far from unreachable. After a successful exit from his first startup, Ethan attended Stanford Business School to study entrepreneurship. During his 2 years of study, he dated several women, but he did not have any serious romances. Sophia continued modeling and dated many men during these years, including a marketing executive when she needed to land a major campaign. After years of being the object of desire, Sophia had become very skilled at the game. By pure coincidence, they both ended up at the same venture capital firm's annual party in San Francisco after Ethan's graduation. Ethan and several of his colleagues were enjoying the evening when Sophia walked in with 2 women. All heads immediately turned to look at the striking woman in the short emerald dress with a low neckline. Sophia barely paid any attention to it because at that moment it was expected, and she was used to it. "Who is this goddess?" Alex Chen choked to the entire table of colleagues without having time to think about his words. Ethan reflexively replied, "This, ladies and gentlemen, is Sophia the goddess and your humble servant's ex-girlfriend." Every head at the table turned from the woman to Ethan, many of them with their mouths open. "You dated her?" one of them asked incredulously. Ethan winced in displeasure. He hated drawing attention to himself. Any attention. "I was in my early 20s when we dated. Later I was buried in code, and she ignored me as if I were the invisible man," he said quietly. "So do you at least have a good story about her?" one of the women at the table joked. The whole team burst into cheerful laughter. This made Sophia and her friends look over. For a moment she thought she recognized one of the men at the table, but she wasn't sure. The trio sat down at a nearby table, with Sophia facing the table of the man she considered familiar. "Dude, aren't you going to come over and say hi?" Jen asked. "Jesus, Alex, you are drooling." "Very unimpressive," said another colleague. "She pretended not to know me for years. I don't understand why she would remember me now," Ethan said. Several heads nodded in agreement. Sophia continued to study the man, enjoying her champagne. Then she snapped her fingers and pointed at him. "It is not cool, Sophia," one of her friends said. "If you point at someone at an event, it might be considered rude." She completely ignored her friend's remark. "I'll be right back," she announced. "I need to say hello to an old friend." Sophia practically glided across the room and walked over to the table where Ethan was sitting. "Hello. Very glad to see you," Sophia exclaimed. Approaching him, Ethan rolled his eyes at his friends and then turned to face his former girlfriend with a fake happy expression. "Sophia, it is good to see you," Ethan said almost without emotion, rising to his feet. Sophia entered Ethan's personal space and kissed him tenderly on the lips, placing her hands on his shoulders. His colleagues sat stunned. Ethan, in turn, was also stunned. Sophia realized this and smiled at him with a not entirely innocent smile. She felt very comfortable playing this game, and she knew that he could not. "Let's go to our table. I'll introduce you to the girls," she said. She took his hand and practically dragged him with her to her table. He spent most of the evening with Sophia and her two friends. Before he left, Sophia took his cell phone, entered her own number into it, and wrote down his number for herself. Sophia was more than intrigued that Ethan seemed to be indifferent to her. This had never happened to her before. He was polite at the party, but spent as much time talking with her two friends as he did with her. During the evening, she kissed him on the lips several times, but he never kissed back. On Monday morning, Ethan's work colleagues confronted him about his relationship with the goddess, and were stunned when he told them he stayed at the party for about an hour before heading home. "She is impressive, but she is 14 levels above me. I understand," he grumbled. Such distress awaited Ethan at the parking garage of his workplace 2 days later, when he was leaving work. He grumbled to himself as he saw her waiting for him by his Tesla. Although he had to admit that in a dress one size too small, she looked like temptation on a stick. "Why didn't you call, Eth?" she asked in a quiet voice as he approached her. Ethan tried his best not to widen his eyes as he looked Sophia up and down like a hungry man seeing his first meal in weeks. The low-cut top was unbuttoned all the way down to her cleavage, and the hem ended just about 5 centimeters below her crotch. "Damn it," he muttered to himself as she leaned forward to wrap her arms around his neck and press a kiss to his lips. He found himself defenseless as her tongue slid into his mouth and attacked him. He dropped his laptop bag, and the kiss dragged on indefinitely. Several of his colleagues who had stopped in shock quickly got into their cars and drove away. They went to a restaurant located in the hills outside the city and ate happily, although Sophia spent most of the dinner tugging at the bottom of her dress. Both Ethan and the young waitress seemed to be enjoying her struggle. Ethan was wary of Sophia, but he was only human, and when a scantily clad goddess turned on her charm, he was toast. The best he could hope for was to perform well that night. "Oh my God," Ethan whispered to himself, looking at Sophia without clothes for the first time. This woman was the goddess Ethan had always imagined her to be. If this was going to be his only opportunity, he had to give it his all. He had to be sure that he wouldn't miss his chance because lust would take over his feelings. Having had their fill, they lay face to face and looked into each other's eyes. Sophia smiled languidly. "Apparently I screwed up big time a few years ago," she whispered. "You have amazing abilities, who would have thought? If only I had known. We've lost several years, Eth." Sophia knew what was happening when it was right in front of her. Although Ethan wasn't in her league in looks, he was still handsome, fit, and by the looks of it, had a good career ahead of him. He is also very good in bed, she thought, though she said nothing. Despite the fact that Ethan had doubts about this woman, mainly related to her self-centeredness, their relationship gradually improved. Her beauty was obvious, but he slowly fell in love with who Sophia was. Ethan bought an engagement ring, but before proposing, they sat down and discussed their thoughts on fidelity. She had impressed him so far, but Ethan wanted nothing left unsaid between them. "Obviously, I don't know much about your past. I am not going to ask about numbers or names," Ethan said when they sat down at the table for a serious conversation. "What happened in the past will remain in the past. The same goes for me. But I need to know about the future. From now on, I want us to be exclusive. Fully, no ifs, ands, or buts. If you don't believe you can do this for us, I need to know now." He placed a small black box on the table between them. Sophia looked straight into Ethan's eyes, then back at the box. "I will never cheat on my husband. Never." Ethan remembered these words. Apparently, his wife did not consider this cheating since she warned him in advance. He knew that wasn't true. She hoped, that he would take it that way, because if he didn't accept it, Ethan knew that Sophia had had many opportunities to cheat over the years. And as far as he could tell, she had rejected all of them. Like a good wife should. She was a 10, hell, a 12, and he considered himself a 6 at best. This left plenty of room for someone closer to her physical level to sneak into their life and make a statement. Assuming that she did not have an affair that he did not know about, then she lived for 6 years as a real wife. Ethan knew he should be grateful for these years, but he wasn't. When he said, I love you, he wanted it to be forever, not merely 6 years. In fact, not a week went by without Sophia receiving propositions from someone, not just men. She knew that she was not just beautiful, she was amazing, a rare goddess among simply beautiful women. When God created my wife, he had an exceptional day, Ethan always said. At first, Sophia told Ethan about it every time she was hit on, trying to be completely transparent. However, after a few years, Ethan said that he trusted her enough that she didn't need to tell him everything. The only time he would want to know that she was being pestered is if the pest did not accept her first refusal. Then, he would take the necessary steps to send the offender away. Ethan, on the other hand, was rarely approached by women. This was partly due to the fact that he used his wedding ring almost as a shield. Within minutes of meeting a woman, Ethan spoke in glowing terms about his wife, which usually extinguished any sparks that might have flared. He didn't even realize what he was doing, and most women shut down before they even had a chance to flirt. Sophia had no idea that her husband was turning off potential flirts. The almost fairy tale marriage lasted 5 years before Marcela Rodriguez entered the proverbial Garden of Eden, or rather came to work at the same digital marketing agency as Sophia. Marcela was a dark-haired beauty with big brown eyes and curves in all the right places. Men were attracted to her like a strong magnet attracts metal. In any other office, she would have been an alpha female. But at Pixel Perfect, she became, at best, a faithful assistant to Sophia, one of the most beautiful women in tech marketing. 35-year-old Marcela had been married for 8 years, but, according to her own words, she was not a fan of it. She had several affairs with her husband's knowledge, and several more without his knowledge, and she often shared stories of her adventures with Sophia. She was a very good storyteller, and in her stories, intimacy with most of her lovers seemed fantastic. So you haven't tried anyone since you got married. You are such a rock. But I don't believe that you don't want this, Marcela said one day at work during a coffee break. Well, I am not saying I am not curious, but I would never cheat on Ethan, Sophia said. In recent months, Sophia had noticed that she didn't feel like she got as much attention from men at bars and restaurants as she used to. More than once, she noticed that the looks that were previously directed at her were received by younger women, and she began to doubt her abilities to visually attract, let alone play the what if game. What if hubby lets you try? What then? Asked Marcela. Sophia's face showed that she had never thought about such a scenario before. The wheels in her head were spinning madly. I guess if I had permission, then it would be a completely different story, Sophia admitted with a mischievous grin. Have you ever thought about asking permission? Asked Marcela. You know that everything worth having is worth asking for. Sophia had never thought about this before. Her face lit up, then went dark. He will never give me permission. Never, Sophia said. Should I do everything for you? Asked Marcela. Unspoken permission. Tell him and then take what you want regardless of his answer. Tell him that he loves you enough to let you do this, that you can get through this because it has nothing to do with love, that you love only him. Ethan was awakened by the sound of a car approaching their building. Looking at his watch, he realized that it was a little after 3 o'clock in the morning. A glance at the bottle of Hibiki showed that he had finished about half of it. Great evening, huh? He quipped to Sophia as she walked through the front door. Ethan looked closely at the cliché his wife had become. Her hair was combed but tousled, her makeup was missing. Her clothes looked rumpled. She didn't look remorseful, but smug. I could say the same to you, she hissed. You didn't have to wait, you know? I am going to sleep, and you may be, but never again in this life with me, he snapped back. Sophia gave him a look of disgust and headed up the stairs. Ethan poured 3 more fingers of bourbon into his glass and went back to watching ESPN. He spent the night in his chair, half sitting, half lying, his stomach grumbling. Around 9 o'clock, he finally got up from his chair and made himself breakfast. While eating, he heard the shower turn on in the master bathroom. Under normal circumstances, Ethan might have expected his wife to come downstairs in a robe and with her hair wrapped in a towel. This morning, she didn't come down for about an hour, and when she did, her hair was dried, she was dressed and made up, looking impeccable as always. He expected nothing less. Did you happen to leave me something to eat? She asked. I made a big pot of coffee, but cook the food yourself. And since you are dressed, I think now is the time to talk, he said categorically. Sophia was surprised by how emotionless Ethan seemed. She expected him to simply foam at the mouth and be irrational, which would make him easier to manipulate. A rational Ethan would make the conversation much more difficult. She reasoned to herself. "Don't you want to know about last night?" she said quietly. Ethan detected a note of superiority in her tone. Does she really believe he wants to know about how he was betrayed? Hardly. "I want to know how you see our marriage moving forward," Ethan said, his voice sounding no louder than hers. "As I said yesterday, I intend to try several other men over the course of several years. Only intimacy, no love. I only love you, but I want to try a few more men while I still have the looks and the body. I gave everything to you for 6 years, and I never had a thought about betrayal. I want the thrill of something unfamiliar. You are wonderful in bed, but I want some variety. I'll have some experiences for a while, and then you and I will go off into the sunset together, and I will be grateful to you for this experience and will spoil you exclusively for the rest of our days," Sophia said. Ethan listened intently as Sophia spoke while preparing toast and jam for his coffee. He thought the way she buttered her toast while talking about the most important things in his life was rather dispassionate. He had so many questions. "Is it all because you want variety? Am I not enough for you?" he asked. She started to answer, but he interrupted her. "So you want to live in an open marriage for a few years and then return to monogamy again sometime in the future? Does this mean I can date others too?" Sophia tried unsuccessfully to suppress her giggles. The idea of her sweet, quiet husband asking another woman out on a date was simply laughable. Ethan was the most serious about marriage of any man she had ever met. "However, if this is what it takes for you to agree in principle." "Yes," she answered. "Of course, I assume that for you, it will also be just physical." Ethan raised his eyebrows and shrugged. Sophia had no idea what this movement meant. However, she had an idea. "So would you like to go on a date with Marcella? You know, a very nice woman from my office." "I am sure she'll be happy to agree," Sophia said, knowing that her friend would have no problem having a night with her husband, especially if it meant helping Sophia achieve her goal of having intimacy with other men and still being married. Ethan looked puzzled. The lustful bachelor in him wanted to take the bait. The responsible 33-year-old married guy knew that he could not do this. "I would be glad to have a date with Marcella, but no. Baby, thank you. That will make me as much of a traitor as you were last night," he said. Sophia's face, which had started to smile, suddenly turned into a grimace of anger. "I am not a traitor," she screamed. "Well, if you insist, baby," he said, much more seriously than she could have expected. "But I still don't agree to it. You'll come to your senses, baby, because I will do this even if you don't," she snorted. On Monday morning, at about 11 o'clock, Marcella came into Sophia's office and saw that she did not look happy. "To hell with this bigot and the horse he rode in on," Sophia hissed, closing the office door behind Marcella. "Damn it, he even refused to date you." Marcella frowned. "I didn't know I was on the menu, but the hell with it. How could he refuse this?" she said, stroking her body with her hands. "How about your date? Did you have a good time, or did Ethan ruin everything?" asked Marcella. "The date was fantastic. Daniel definitely knows how to make a woman feel good," Sophia enthused. "God, it has been so long since I felt another man. I definitely like the difference. Who do you think I should try next?" They both laughed heartily. Sophia was encouraged by the fact that she was not immediately served with divorce papers. Since she and her husband had virtually no contact, she decided it would be wiser not to ask about his plans at all. Although he didn't tell his wife, Ethan really didn't want to rush into a divorce. He hoped that she would quickly come to her senses and abandon her stupid plans to betray him. He believed that he could forgive her, and they could forget about her misdeed if she stopped this nonsense. His hopes were boosted when Sophia didn't go on a date the following week, although he still didn't return to the bedroom, and they still weren't communicating positively. However, the following Friday evening, Sophia was again dressed to the highest standards, apparently ready for a date. "Are you seriously planning to do this again? With the same guy, or want to use someone else this week?" Ethan asked sharply. "Damn Eth. Didn't you hear a word I said? It is not about you, it is about me and my desire to get something before I get too old to attract anyone." It is not that I want you less, I just want more. Indifferent, People constantly pester me. I just want to enjoy it. I will always come back to you, she said. What if I don't want you to come back to me? I won't share with you. I won't sit idly by while you have fun. I am not made for this. I won't wait until you try half the male population of our city. When you had your first date, I wasn't sure yet. But I think I could survive it once. It could be extreme stupidity, but twice. It is extreme disrespect, extreme betrayal. Stay outside all night, party all night. We're done. This is not why I was created on this earth, he said, his voice trembling. Wah WW, she said, making speaking movements with the fingers of her right hand. You don't want to lose me. It doesn't have to be an either or situation. Last week, Ethan instructed his lawyer to prepare all the necessary documents, hoping that they would not be necessary. He planned to call his wife on Monday morning. When Sophia walked through the door at 2 o'clock in the morning, Ethan was nowhere to be seen. Even though she arrived an hour earlier than her previous date, she looked a little more disheveled. Marcus Boyd was a large, strong man with great physical strength, perhaps the strongest Sophia had ever encountered in bed. By the end of the evening, she could hardly move. She knew that by tomorrow, she would most likely have a couple of bruises from his grip. Overall, it was a great night, she thought. She could enjoy Marcus another time. Sophia was shocked and embarrassed when she was handed divorce papers at her office on Monday morning. She burst into tears and ran to the ladies' room. A few minutes later, hearing the noise, Marcella appeared. You should have known that he would at least give you the documents, Marcella said. You really hurt him, baby. This is his way of hurting you back. An eye for an eye. Men are such children. He is trying to get leverage. He won't give up his 6-year marriage and half his tech fortune. Give him a week to be alone, and he'll come crawling back, she said, trying to comfort her. Straightening up, Sophia returned to her desk, picked up her phone, and immediately dialed her husband's number. How could you do this to me in the office in front of everyone? I know you are hurting, but I deserve better. Better, Eth. She practically screamed into the phone. After 6 years, don't I deserve something better than you unilaterally deciding to open our marriage? If I am not right for you, couldn't you have just warned me in advance? And we could have parted ways like civilized people, Ethan said. I don't want civility. I don't want to get a divorce. I still love you. You still love me, she wailed. I still love you, but every time you have a night with someone else, that love diminishes, he growled. My love is not a bottomless well like yours. I always thought this was true. Who knows? Maybe we were both wrong. Sophia fought against the divorce. Her lawyer requested and received marriage counseling. Although Ethan was adamantly opposed, Sophia smiled, and Ethan frowned as they were ushered into the consultant's inner sanctum and found Dr. Jasmine Lee sitting in one of the chairs at the consultant's desk. Data on marriage counselors shows that most believe their job is to reconcile divorcing couples, and female counselors seem to be biased in favor of women. The consultant began. Let's start with correcting those assumptions. Let's start with the simplest thing. Mrs. Morgan, did you really tell your husband that you were going to date other men for a few years? Ethan tried his best to prevent the consultant from seeing his smirk. Sophia tried her best not to let the consultant see how shocked she was. She thought about lying, but then realized that she did not have a ready-made story for this lie. Yes, I told him about it, she answered quietly. That is what I want. I don't need him to suffer for me. This won't affect our marriage. Well, I think we'll end here, said the consultant. Sorry to waste your time, Mrs. Morgan. I'll talk to the judge and end this farce. But, Sophia began to stutter. Honey, if you thought for even a minute that what you did to your husband would work with me, then you were crazy. You should be ashamed of yourself. But obviously, you don't have an ounce of shame. Frankly, you disgust me, Dr. Lee said. Over the next month, Sophia called and texted Ethan several times a day as he rented a small condo near their apartment. He did not answer calls or text messages. Then she turned to their friends for help, who called several times. Eth, you know you still love her. If she stopped dating other men, would you give her another chance? Jason asked during one of these calls. So she still continues to do this even after I served her? Ethan asked in a trembling voice. He received only silence in response. That was all the answer he needed. Jason didn't call again, and didn't ask him to try again. Ethan was surprised by how quickly word of his impending divorce spread, especially among single women. Several women at his company expressed their condolences over his marital problems, as did several women who were friends of both him and his wife. He was smart enough to realize that not all of their condolences were altruistic. Mei Lin, his wife's longtime friend, called to express her regret about what was going on in Ethan's life. She almost directly offered him a shoulder to cry on, and not just a shoulder. Ethan was shocked that his wife's close friend was hitting on him so openly. In all the years of acquaintance, the divorced woman never even cast a sidelong glance at him. "I would never pursue a friend's husband. It is just wrong," she told him. "But now that you are a free man, the rules are different. I am letting you know that I am interested in you. I am flattered, but I am not a free man yet, May, and I won't date until the divorce is final. I know I am being stupid, but I won't cheat," Ethan said. "You are such a Boy Scout. This is one of the things I like about you. I always liked it. Can you at least promise a date when you are free?" May asked. "Of course," Ethan said, "but I don't want to come between you and Sophia. You've been friends for many years. I appreciate your sensitivity, but just because it is complicated doesn't mean I should miss out on a good person. I wouldn't even think twice if you were just some guy I didn't know when we just met," May said. "Maybe I'll call you when I take off the leash," Ethan joked. May was an Asian beauty, 5'5" tall with a toned body and waist-length black hair, which was one of the main assets in Ethan's eyes. He admitted to himself that he was more than surprised that the woman showed interest in him. Ethan was true to his word and called May the day his divorce became official. On Saturday evening, they went to a restaurant and then to a local jazz club. May noticed that Ethan was feeling awkward and commented on it. "I feel like an inexperienced 15-year-old, he replied. "I haven't been on a date with another woman in over 7 years. Don't tell me the protection in your wallet is the same one you had on your last date before Sophia," she joked. "Should I have had protection crap? I didn't even think about it." "Well, I am a newbie," Ethan replied. At the end of the evening, May kissed Ethan tenderly on the lips. They both felt good after the date, and he promised to call again. Ethan didn't think much about taking off his wedding ring on the day the divorce was final, but apparently it was a big deal for unmarried women. Noticing the emptiness on his ring finger, several female employees took notice and commented on it, and suddenly the level of flirting in his office increased noticeably. This was new to him, and one day over lunch, he told his best friend at the company about it. "There are a lot of beautiful women in this office." "How did I not notice this before?" Ethan asked. "You, my friend, were just a terrible doormat," said Kevin Joe. "You were so deeply in love with that woman that you didn't even look at other women as potential partners. I mean, she is a beautiful woman, no doubt, but you let her control you completely. And maybe that was part of the problem. She is constantly being tested, knows her value, and you were so passive. Such a vibe emanated from you that not a single woman even looked at you." In the first month after the divorce, Ethan went on 4 dates, 2 of them with May. He hadn't yet managed to sleep with any of the 3 women he dated, but that wasn't his goal. In the second month, he was just as in demand and slept with 2 women. Ethan's friends, who had been in contact with Sophia more than with him in recent months, heard her constantly assert that while she could have virtually any man with just a snap of her fingers, their mutual friend was an ordinary man in his 30s, who would find it difficult to even find a date, not to mention a permanent girlfriend. They began to feel sorry for their friend, and one Saturday morning, about 2 months after the divorce, they went to his condo together, Yoon announced. Ethan was unhappy that he was woken up at 8:36, especially since he had entertained his companion until late the night before. Lexi, a vivacious 26-year-old UX designer, was the sister of a colleague who needed a reliable gentleman for her app launch party. The evening went so well that the couple decided to end it at Ethan's condo. At that moment, she was sleeping in his bed when he opened the door in a robe. He asked, throwing open the door and seeing the smiling faces of Jason and Alex, who were holding bags of bagels, smoked salmon, and cream cheese. "Hello, friend. Could your 2 loyal buddies come over for breakfast?" Jason said as the pair entered the apartment. Ethan clapped them both on the back and led them to the kitchen counter, where they emptied the bags they had brought with them. They were just putting away the bagels when Lexi came out of the bedroom wearing one of Ethan's white shirts, half-buttoned, and probably not wearing anything else. "Sorry, I didn't know you were expecting guests, babe," Lexi said. No, no. Lexi, these are my friends, Jason and Alex," he said, pointing to his friends with the appropriate names. "We're having breakfast, bagel with salmon." Lexi giggled, causing her to shift under the shirt. She brushed her hand against Ethan's arm and sank into the chair next to him. The four of them engaged in normal small talk for a while, until Jason asked if Ethan had spoken to Sophia lately. He frowned for the first time in days. Until this moment, he had believed that it was almost impossible to get upset when being around Lexi, although she was a little energetic for his 33-year-old body. "I have to tell you guys, we thought you were already missing Sophia," Alex said. "We know that she misses you. I thought that when I was gone, she would live her life to the fullest. I know that I was holding her back, though apparently she was hooking up with them too at a time in our old bed," Ethan said. "Dad," Lexi exclaimed while Jason and Alex looked confused. "She is not a ledger, you know," Jason said. "Really think about this for a second. How many different guys has she had a night with since you broke up? And those that I knew about before I left?" Both guys blushed and lowered their heads. "Wow, if it is 2 guys a month for what? 3 months, that is 6 different guys. With 3 guys a month, that is 9. For me, that is a lot of guys," said Lexi. If looks could kill, Ethan's friends would have put Lexi in her grave in a matter of seconds. She was well aware of this fact. "Hey, don't blame me if a woman can't keep her legs closed," Lexi said. Children, let's not ruin my good weekend," Ethan said. "Sorry," all 3 young people muttered at the same time. "So, are you a couple?" Jason asked Lexi quietly. "You don't look older than me." Ethan said that we're compatible. "But don't worry, I am not going to become your new best friend's wife. We're just friends. He is a great guy. He was my date at the app launch party last night, and he is kind of hot. Did I mention that he is also brilliant with design feedback? Well, we have to agree that he is a great guy, although we know he can be a bit of a workaholic from time to time," Jason said. "And yeah, he is kind of hot for a guy who is well established in his career." It was Lexi's turn to blush. Ethan blushed too. "Hey, babe, remember that we have lunch with the venture capital team at the downtown restaurant at noon? I need to take a shower and grab some clothes from my apartment before we go," Lexi said. Both friends rolled their eyes at their friend. "She is my age," Jason told Sophia over coffee a few weeks later. And it didn't look like a one-off. They spent quite a long time together. They enjoyed each other's company. "I don't think he'll come crawling back to you anytime soon." Sophia: "No, you just caught him on a lucky day. He was probably helping a friend's sister and got lucky. She's probably a girl of easy virtue who will sleep with anyone. Ethan is a great guy, but he is not a player," Sophia said. Jason raised his eyebrows at her. "You always seemed pleased with him until you told him you were going to leave him. Why didn't you just cheat on him without telling him? Wouldn't that have been a lot easier? You might as well have your cake and eat it too." "That would be cheating, Jason. And if he caught me, well, then we would break up. Having told him about this, I didn't cheat and was sure that he would give me what I wanted when he realized what exactly he would lose. I must admit, I did not expect a divorce. I never thought he would have the guts to do it." "Sophia, I think you mistook love for weakness. And somewhere along the way, you decided that everything depended solely on you. Was it all worth it for the first time?" Sophia's face showed the stress of what she had to endure. From Marcella's lips, everything sounded much better than it actually turned out to be. She couldn't tell Jason that the intimacy was just average. And no, it wasn't worth it. She also couldn't tell him that she never thought Ethan would do anything other than sit around and pine for his beautiful ex-wife. She was so self-absorbed that she had no idea that a handsome, if not gorgeous, man with great character, intelligence, and a solid career could be very attractive in the singles market, and not just for women his age. She knew that after the divorce, her ex-husband dated several women, including her old friend May, and now some young woman of questionable values, the same age as their friend group. Instead of sitting at home and mourning his past life, he was dating like a single 20-something and getting more attention than she thought he deserved. She didn't tell May anything when she found out her friend was dating her ex for the first time, figuring it was some kind of pity date. but the second date was completely unnecessary. And she told May privately in a high-pitched tone, "I thought we were friends, May. You should be on my side. We girls have to have each other's backs. But he didn't do anything wrong to you, Sophia, and he is a good guy. Great, he is everything I want in a man. Why shouldn't I date Ethan? Hell, women are lining up to go on dates with him. He is prime dating material, and he is a true gentleman, and amazing in every way. I will go on a date with him anytime he invites me." "How could you drive such a man away?" Sophia silently stared at her friend with her mouth open. She was just beginning to realize that her mistake was growing by leaps and bounds. She missed Ethan and hated coming back to an empty apartment at the end of the day. She hated sleeping alone at night. Ethan, of course, could not have imagined that his life would become so exciting. He would have been quite happy if his old stable life had remained as it was. But other than that, life suited him quite well. Work was good, his social life was great, and he enjoyed being with several women of different ages. Most of his dates ended in bed, but he certainly wasn't looking for a long-term partner at the moment. He was just enjoying this buffet of possibilities. There is more to life than just being married to a beautiful woman, he often told himself. Catherine Sterling, silver gray hair streaked with indigo, and pulled into a ponytail emerging from a hole in the back of her vintage rock band baseball cap, drew more than her fair share of stares in the VIP section at the tech conference in San Francisco. Her sleek blazer hugged her frame, and despite being 45 years old, she commanded attention in any room she entered. One of the people, looking at her appraisingly, was the man she was with, Ethan Morgan, the ex-husband of one of her longtime business contacts, Sophia Morgan. He and Catherine were attending the conference as part of a weekend of networking. Catherine had worked opposite Sophia Morgan in several business deals over 10 years. "I met Ethan at several industry events where he accompanied his then-wife and always thought he was a handsome and astute guy," she thought to herself. She knew that he and Sophia had divorced about 6 months ago. Catherine had been divorced for about 3 years. Her longtime husband had left her for his assistant. During this time, she had gone on only a handful of dates, none of which impressed her enough for a second meeting. After finding out Ethan's contact information, she took a chance. Yes, Ethan remembered her. He thought it was hard to forget a woman who seemed to exude both sophistication and brilliance. Would he like to meet for drinks? Absolutely, he replied. This was several months before this moment. The first date took place in an upscale wine bar, after which there was a performance art exhibition, with tickets provided by Catherine. The evening ended with them kissing at the door of her downtown loft. The second date was a Saturday hike in the hills, and the woman laughed several times when a clearly winded Ethan had to take short breaks during the ascent. It appears she and her ex-husband were avid rock climbers, and although Ethan thought he was in good shape, it turns out he was wrong. He also learned that Catherine had a toned body and mesmerizing green eyes. The date ended with Catherine and Ethan making passionate love on the plush area rug in the living room of her loft after they had a stimulating conversation on her balcony. She intrigued him with her combination of corporate savvy and artistic sensibility. Catherine happily agreed when Ethan suggested they attend the tech conference in San Francisco as part of their third date. On their first date, Catherine told Ethan that she had no intention of telling Sophia that they were dating. If asked, she would not have denied it, but she was not going to advertise this fact. Catherine also told Ethan that Sophia had told mutual business contacts that she and Ethan were getting a divorce due to irreconcilable differences. Ethan told Catherine the same story he told everyone else. Sophia had cheated on him with at least 2 different men. He didn't elaborate further. In the 6 months since his divorce, Ethan developed several strong relationships and enjoyed what he considered an amazing intimate life. All of his partners had a good opinion of him, and some of them hoped that they would be considered when Ethan decided to trust women again and get married. Sophia worked in a different direction. As she told her then-husband before their first date, she was simply looking for satisfaction, while she still had the looks to attract almost any man. She was not looking for an emotional relationship with most of her partners. This major difference between the 2 ex-partners became increasingly evident to their mutual friends. Jason and his fiancée, Emma, were deep in preparations for their upcoming wedding, which both Ethan and Sophia would be attending. When Sophia told Emma that she thought their friend group should attend the wedding without bringing outside dates, so there would be less tension, Emma quickly agreed with this idea and conveyed it to Jason, who then mentioned it to Ethan that same week when they chatted over lunch. "Does this brilliant idea come from you or from Sophia?" Ethan asked sternly. "I plan to bring a date with me. I've been taking dance lessons for about a year now, ever since you announced your engagement. Have you taken dance lessons seriously just for our wedding? This is so thoughtful." "But no. No buts, Jason. She apparently doesn't have anyone she considers close enough to invite, so she is trying to put pressure on me. And again, she acts manipulatively and tries to control the situation in her favor. Sorry, but I won't be showing up to my best friend's wedding without a date. If you don't have the courage to tell her about it, then I certainly will. She can go alone or take a gentleman with her. That is her business." "I'll bring my +1 with me," Ethan said. "Got it, man. I will tell her your point is legitimate, and I really want to see you dance. But could you still bring someone a bit more established? You know, not someone who makes us all feel ancient?" Jason joked. "I can do this, but you really should watch how Lexi and I dance." Ethan smiled widely and received a wide smile in response. Ethan took May along with him to the wedding. He thought she looked stunning in the emerald dress she bought, which he insisted on paying for. They argued over this, but Ethan explained to her that since he was a groomsman and would be wearing a tuxedo, she deserved something special, which he would be happy to help with. "And yes, I understand that it also requires accessories," he told her with a charming smile on his face. Being part of his best friend's wedding was one of the greatest experiences of Ethan's life. It was a wonderful day. He, May, and their friends had fun and danced until late at night. The only moment that caused discord on this day was the appearance of his ex-wife with her own gentleman. Not that Ethan cared. But the guy spent most of the first part of the wedding smirking at Ethan, and then most of the reception staring at and making inappropriate comments to several women, like an obnoxious frat boy. At least until Emma asked her new husband to request that Sophia remove her guest. Sophia, clearly embarrassed, apologized profusely, and quickly ushered the man out the door before leaving with her date. Sophia still took the time to follow May into the women's restroom. "You are the one who stole my man," she said to May when they were alone in the bathroom. "I am sorry, but I've never stolen a man from anyone," May answered. "He divorced you before we even started dating. You have no one to blame for this but yourself. You threw away a great man for cheap thrills." Sophia's face turned crimson. Her eyes, which had initially been staring intently at the other woman, suddenly dimmed. She lowered her head and stood motionless as May walked out the door. May never said a word to Ethan or their friends because she didn't want to ruin their special day. A few months after the wedding, Alex visited Ethan and seemed restless. Ethan watched him for a moment before asking the question. "Okay, Alex, what is going on? You've been kind of nervous all evening." Alex blushed deeply and began to stutter. Ethan knew something was very wrong. Sophia talks about getting back together with you from time to time, about how she will win you over when she stops sleeping around. You two didn't hook up or anything, did you?" he asked. "My love life is none of your business, young man," Ethan snapped, but then softened. "But no, I didn't sleep with Sophia, and definitely won't be anytime soon." "Why?" "The fact is that she has a health issue. I heard the end of her conversation with her friend Marcella, and she said that she had contracted an STI, Alex said quietly without looking his friend in the eyes. Ethan looked surprised, and then concerned as Alex watched him out of the corner of his eye. "I guess you are telling me this because you are worried about me," Ethan said. "But it is standard medical practice to inform all possible partners when someone tests positive. I haven't been contacted." "I didn't know that. I was just worried about you. I know Sophia is still seeing multiple people. Several of our mutual friends warned me that she has been quite indiscriminate lately. It is always awkward when someone tells you that someone you used to be close to isn't being careful." A few days later, Ethan received a concerned call from Catherine. He immediately realized that she was worried about the same things as Alex, although she obviously also had concerns about her own health. "If you are wondering if I slept with my ex, the answer is not just no, but absolutely not," Ethan said. "Believe me, Catherine, I understand your concern, but I haven't been anywhere near Sophia since the split." The rumors are the nicest thing I've heard about her in a long time. In recent months, her activities have become the subject of industry gossip. It seems like the longer she is single, the more she is throwing caution to the wind, Catherine said. Sophia used her health scare as a starting point in her plan to get Ethan back. She was satisfied that she had had enough men to last her for the rest of her life. 6 months after her doctor gave her a clean bill of health, she began planning how to reconnect with Ethan. She was still resentful of Ethan for divorcing her, which was not part of her original plan. This reconciliation might have worked if other women had not started pursuing Ethan so actively. Sophia had no doubt that she was a prize. She didn't expect Ethan to be as desirable to other women. I know he is a great guy, but can't these women see that he is nowhere near my level? She said to Marcella one day as both women sipped cocktails at the bar, waiting for their dates for the evening. Marcella had pushed her friend toward her current lifestyle. She knew that Ethan was quite handsome, but she greatly underestimated the depth of his personality. Also, because he had always been so agreeable with his wife, she expected Ethan to just sit around and mope while Sophia enjoyed herself. Who knew that Ethan had such magnetism? Sophia lamented. She and Marcella had been keeping an eye on Ethan since Sophia gave him the ultimatum. And in truth, it turned out that his post-divorce life was almost as active as Sophia's. If Sophia had been more honest with herself, she might have admitted that her ex-husband's romantic life seemed to be much more fulfilling from an emotional standpoint. Ethan was more than surprised by the voice on the other end of the line. He hadn't spoken directly to his ex-wife for almost 6 months. One of their friends must have given her his new cell phone number. He didn't forbid them to do this, but he said that he did not consider it necessary to ever speak to her directly again. "Hi, Eth," she purred in her sweetest tone. "I think it is time for us to talk." "I thought we had nothing more to discuss," Ethan said. "Still the same Ethan, still trying to deny that you love me. But you know you do. You know, you want me back," she replied. "Still the same Sophia," he sighed. "You still think that everything revolves around you. Look, I know you are still convinced. I'll come crawling back. But I really don't want to reopen old wounds. It was still cheating, Sophia. Just because you told me you were going to do it doesn't make it any less real. You did it because you thought I would never give up on you. Do you think I am that desperate?" Ethan said. "I know you think you are a 10 hell, a 12. And yes, you are gorgeous. But I don't have to live in your shadow, as the last few months have shown me. I am not just the husband of a beautiful woman. Other women want what I have to offer and are willing to value me emotionally. My life has been absolutely wonderful lately. Why would I want to date a self-centered woman again who clearly doesn't respect me and, no matter what she says, doesn't love me the way I loved her? Loved her in the past tense." After disconnecting, Ethan put down the phone and turned to the woman next to him. "Are you ready for another round of movies and takeout?" he asked Catherine with a smile. Catherine eventually moved to London for a major career opportunity, but May continued her relationship with Ethan. He fell in love with her in his own way, but remained cautious about marriage. She also loved him deeply and accepted this relationship. Moreover, a few years later, May was invited to attend the wedding of their friend Emma's sister, with Ethan as her date. This did not please Sophia, who was also invited, but did not bring a date to the wedding. She complained to Emma, but Emma did not sympathize. "After Jason and me, May is one of the closest people in the world to Ethan," Emma answered. "She loves Ethan for who he is and puts him above her own interests, which not everyone can say about themselves. He was yours, and you left him for more excitement simply because you were afraid of missing out and thought that he had no other options, that he would never give up on you for anything or anyone. Ethan was happy with his life, even if it wasn't his first choice. He had escaped a situation that he considered unacceptable and found something better." Sophia's life was not one of complete loneliness and remorse. After all, she was still an attractive woman, and beautiful women often just need to show up for men to start hitting on them. Sophia was often approached and had quite a few short-term relationships. However, none of them developed into anything long-term or meaningful. Looking back, Sophia had to admit that she regretted telling her husband that she was going to start seeing other men. She still couldn't come to terms with the fact that Ethan had given up on her so easily. "How could I have miscalculated so badly?" she often wondered to herself. I am practically perfect, and he was just ordinary. It shouldn't have ended like this. How did he move on so completely? But she knew the answer. Some values once broken can't be repaired. Some bridges, once burned, leave only ashes. And some mistakes, no matter how beautiful the person who makes them, reveal character flaws that no physical beauty can mask. By the time she realized the value of what she had thrown away, Ethan had already discovered his own value and found someone who recognized it from the start.